Overcoming objections. Everybody hates getting those objections, but it's important to know how to overcome them so that you can succeed in real estate. Welcome to the Business of Real Estate podcast with Lynn, Hoffmann, and Eric Johnson. And in today's episodes, we're talking nothing but objections. Okay, we're back. Lynn, objections. People get them all the time.
Yes, people should look at objection as an opportunity. Everybody has an objection. It's just going to happen. You know it's going to happen. So be prepared for it and say thank you when someone gives you an objection. Thank you for asking that. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to show how I'm going to work with you and why this isn't an objection, really. It's just something we're going to discuss.
And I think you said something really key there was you said it's an opportunity. And you know that's something that was ingrained in me with my sales training was that the nice thing is they didn't say no, get the hell out of my place. They've to me it's basically saying I need more information. And it really is. They're not saying no, a complete no yet. They're just saying, I can't make that, I can't move forward without something else. And so it is a great opportunity for people to dig a little deeper. And I know you have sort of, your 3 steps and I have my steps and we probably word them, I know we word them differently, but it gets to the heart of the matter. So let's start with you. Ladies first.
Yeah, when I'm teaching a class, I normally ask everybody, who in the room has ever asked for a discount when they're in a store or when they're shopping? And then they say, oh, you bad person for asking for a discount. How dare you? Broke my heart. I do it. I've asked for a discount too. One time in particular, I was looking at a fire pit and it was a floor model and I thought because it was the floor model, I should get a discount. And the young man just turned to me and said, no, I'm sorry. Even though it's the model, we have to replace it and we'd have to replace it at full cost. Now, what did I do? Did I go running out of the store? No, he's being unreasonable. No, I bought it. I still bought it. I just went, thank you for that explanation, and I bought it. And I really believe everybody handles that the same way. You must remember, they have the sale prevention people in their life. Family, friends, other people saying, ask for a discount. Ask for something thrown in. And that's why that comes. So don't be afraid of it. Embrace it, answer it properly, and then move on.
Yeah, so what are the 3 steps? So when somebody is given an objection, what in terms of how you coach that? So what are the steps you go through?
Okay, so I'm going back to a Buffini step. It's called LIMS. Listen, isolate, mirror, and solve. So first of all, have your ears on and be listening because there's usually a few layers to their question before you get to it. So listen, then isolate the objection. If I'm understanding you correctly, this is what you're saying. And they will tell you right away whether you got it or you didn't. So you listen, you isolate, then you work to solve it. How can we help you with this? What can we best do? What would work for you? Mm-hmm. And then mirror and solve that back at them. So again, always listen, isolate, mirror, and solve the problem for them. That's how I handle them.
Okay. Yeah, and the mirroring is we see that a lot in sales, a lot of the different sales training where you start mirroring so that people feel more comfortable, they're more in touch. And I like, the isolation piece. That's something I think that most agents miss. And I'll be honest with you guys, it is, anytime I've done role playing with agents, they always miss the isolation. And it's very crucial. I know for myself, it is acknowledging. For me, the first step is acknowledging what it is, and I will ask them, to put it back to that person. So what I'm hearing is that you're looking for this, or you don't want to move forward because of this. Is that correct? And we're just confirming that. And then, as Lynn said, we want to get isolate. So isolate that objection, because what could happen is they're just throwing stuff out. And if I try and solve that and they really aren't sure or comfortable, they're going to start throwing out another objection, then another one. And so sometimes I enjoy being that real, I'll call it a real dickhead during role playing. And I'll be the guy, you didn't isolate? Okay, I'm going to start. No, this is another reason I can't move forward. And then they try and solve it. And then I'll just give them another objection, another one. It's crucial because once we can tie them down to saying, okay, it's this one or two or three things, however many it is, we want to isolate. Because now we can tie them down. If we can solve, as Lynn said, if we can solve those issues, those objections, then there should be no reason for them not to move forward unless they lied to us. And nobody likes to be known as a liar. So you said these were the only reasons. The other step for me is when it came to solving is what I call getting to the emotional truth.
Right.
So it was something where I learned is asking more questions, because we know that not the first thing that comes out of people's mouth is not the real truth, is not the real answer. And so we got to dig a little deeper, and you can use the analogy of an onion and peeling the layers, whatever you want. My sales coach had taught me that, even just forget objections, just in talking to somebody and delving deep and finding out some of the answers is, I'm going to ask things and maybe ask them again, reworded slightly differently, using lines such as, maybe I just haven't had enough coffee. I don't understand why this is holding you back. But we ask it a few times and eventually that person goes, look, and you see them getting a little bit emotional. And that's where it came from. And I'm not saying you have to take them to that point, but when we ask a few questions, most people will give up the real reason. And I think people just take that first response at face value, and you're trying to solve that. And for me, it's also important to realize why they're asking. So when somebody asks for a discount, it's not just, okay, well, we don't discount. Okay, but that's an interesting that you would ask for a discount. Why? Why is that? And I want to find out the reason, because when it is some of these objections you get, there are going to be many different reasons behind that objection, why you objected in that way. And it's important for us to know what the real reason is, because that's what we have to solve. If we just go on the surface, we're probably not going to hit the real reason why they gave that objection. So isolation is key, but also for me, it's digging deep and getting to the real reason behind it. Then I can solve it. And once I've solved it, because we've isolated it, we know what the actual problem is, and now we can actually solve that. Now there should not be any problem. Right? So for me, I think that's the key for me is getting down to what I call the emotional truth. What's the real reason behind them giving that objection?
Right. I had written down some thoughts here as Eric's talking, and the very first one is, the first rule is don't freak out. Please don't freak out. Don't let your face show what you're really thinking, because this objection can come as a commissionectomy at the very end of the deal. It can come at the front of the deal. It's not always about money, but it is always about somebody feeling like they won, and somebody always wants to win. And there doesn't always have to be a winner. Or you can make them be a winner without actually letting them have something that they really wanted. There's more than one way to get through this. So just don't freak out. Be thankful. Say thank you. Saying thank you when you get an objection, first of all, it changes your mindset. You've now calmed down and your mind is going, okay, this isn't so bad. Thank you very much. Let's talk about it. And as Eric said, there's usually a lot of different layers to these things. For example, if I'm shopping in a store and I want to buy something, I really am there for a reason, but at the moment when the sales clerk says, can I help you? I go, no, don't need any help. That's just a push off. I will go find them when I want them, okay? But I don't want it at that moment. So again, there's a why. When they say they want the fridge and this and everything all included and it's ridiculous, ask the question, why is that important to you? Is that something worth going to war over? Or is that something that you're negotiable on? Get to the real reason of things. Closing dates, anything. You can have a war over any of these things. Price is usually a big one.
Yep.
But again, people want to feel like they won, they want to feel like they've been heard, and they want to feel like you, their representative, are on their side. So always use good language. I understand why you would feel that way. I hear what you're saying. I hear where you're coming from. But let's talk about why. Let's peel back the onion. Let's go a little deeper. A lot of times people are making these moves not of their own choice. Sometimes there's an underlying problem that you might not be aware of and you really don't need to know, but it's there. And so they get their back up a little bit and they dig in their heels on something that from the outside perspective doesn't seem really logical. So you got to get them to logic.
Yep.
So, we're saying all the same things, just in a little different way.
Yeah, it gets to the heart. You bring up a good point in terms of, you were talking about where people are coming from. And right now we do see things where in the last couple of years we saw like where interest rates dropped, then they come back up. Now it's a question, can people afford to stay in their home? There's going to be a lot of issues when it comes to people not being able to afford. They're trying to sell, but they don't have enough equity. And people are going to see a lot more objections when it comes around commissions and numbers like that. And, it's you do have to empathize. That was one of the key things you mentioned there, the empathy piece. For me, there's also, you want to look at one of the, we'll say best defenses is a good offense in the sense that when you go through your listing presentation or your buyer presentation, whatever it is you're talking to the client about, is that we can think about what are the typical objections we're going to get. And let's try and overcome them during our presentation. Because if we can overcome them before we get to the point of, so what do you think? Do you want to move forward with our, do you want to do business together? Do you want to move forward with me listing a house? However you phrase it, there's so many different ways, but I want to try and overcome those objections before they come up.
And you will, if you've done a good job of your listing presentation. So the one thing I've been saying a lot lately, if the consumer or your client doesn't perceive a value, then there is no value. End of story. So what you need, and I sound a bit like a broken record, I'm going to say it again to everybody. You need to practice your elevator pitch. You need to know in 30 seconds or less why you're the agent they should work with. Then your presentation needs to be sharp and on point. No doubt in their mind that they can see value for what you're talking about. If they don't see the value in you, you have no value. And then they'll be all day long on you on price for commission, price for everything. They will run the gamut of the relationship for the rest of the time. So very, very, very important that you set those tones right. If you've done a great job, there will be no objection. There won't be. They will see value, and you can move forward. So I think that's a really big one. With the tools and what's available now for agents to use in a listing presentation, if you do your homework, if you practice what you're going to say, practice how you're going to say it, practice objections. For example, if somebody says to, well, if you sell my house in 2 weeks, is there going to be a price, is there going to be a commission adjustment? Well, thanks for asking that question, but no, because my work is based on performance. If I sell your house in 2 weeks, I've done a really great job, and you should be very happy. Okay, so little things, but you need to be very confident.
Yes, and it's interesting because I don't want to go too far into the one lane here, but when you were talking about people knowing what value they bring, and it's true because a lot of the objections you're going to get are based on value. They don't see the value in what you're bringing to the table. Now, I can't speak for all of the US and all of Canada. I know that here in Ontario, recently we had some changes to the whole real estate world in terms of TRESA and, putting in certain things into your agreements and your schedules where you have to list all your services. And to be honest, that's something you should have been doing anyways, but wasn't necessarily done by a lot of agents. And now
You're kidding, right?
we
never heard of such a thing.
Yeah. So, we help our agents at our brokerages by putting in some samples and But it's interesting how agents really don't think about what they do and all the services they provide and really go to show the value. And so again, there's something where if I really focus on that and put that in, now I don't have that objection coming forward. Oh, why do you choose X? Why is it X percentage? 5%, 6%, whatever it is. And you start saying, well, here's what the average realtor does, and here's what I do, and a list of all the values, services that you provide. And so that shows that extra value. And that goes to the point of, having that good offense. I'm going to overcome this objection. This is why you're going to know that I am the best realtor for you, and because I provide these services at this high a level, and there's no question about it. The other thing, I remember seeing someone talking about the objection of speaking of the commission, and asking about that commission, drop or discount, if you will. And I like the response being that, I'm glad you're testing me already on my negotiation skills. And when they say that somebody else is already dropped, it's too bad that they already failed that test.
I got a good
right?
answer for that one.
But
and
so there's
they
a lot
should.
of different ways.
And so they should.
But that goes to show that what you were saying earlier is that elevator pitch is practicing. And for me, I get, when I got into sales, Lynn, I thought I hated role play. To be honest, I thought it was a waste of time. I'm too smart. I know this. I got this. And until it's one thing when you're here and if you're just doing it on your own, but when you're in front of a crowd of people or you're in front of the client and it comes up, you better be practiced. You better be able to just come off like that with it.
Well, let me say something about that, because first of all, most agents don't understand their own value. Thing number one. They make good money. When they make the money, when they do a good deal, when they do a good job, they make money. And quite often, they don't believe that they should be making that money. That's thing number one. So they've got to also convince themselves, because if they're not sold on themselves, they can't sell somebody else. So you have to be sold on yourself and believe in yourself first. That's thing number one. About the practice, I was talking about this at the Open. Tiger Woods practiced a 3-foot putt more than he practiced anything else. And the reason sports people get paid so much money is because when they're playing, all eyes are on them. So why the heck, and it just eludes me, why do you not practice for when you're doing a live presentation, when all the money's on the table, when they've interviewed other people and you've got everything to lose? Why can't you practice? Because practice will make the difference between you not getting that listing and getting that listing. And I'm sorry, but that's the truth. So people will say, well, so-and-so's really slick and smooth. Yeah, they are, because they practice, because they've thought every scenario through and they've got an answer. And when you turn to me and say, will I cut my commission? And just smile and say, no, I'm sorry. But there's others that will. So pack up your books and go, because I'm going to tell you right now, there are times to cut when it's a business decision, and that's okay. But there are times when you're working with the wrong person, and no matter what you cut, no matter what you do, that relationship will be a living hell for 90 days.
Yep.
And I've got agents that have come back to me and said, Lynn, 100% right. I wished I'd never spent all that time on these people. It was a disaster. So you've got a chance at the beginning to do it right, do a good job, show your value, be confident in your value, and then have a great relationship with these people, because they will realize you're the professional.
Yeah, and you make a good point in this sense that not every client is going to be your client.
That's right.
That's
right.
You're not just, if somebody asks about, that discount, you're not just going to wrap up your books and go. You are going to sit there and try and overcome and isolate. And like we said, you get to the real reason. And sometimes those reasons are going to be one where you go, man, it's not a good connection for me. It's not a good fit, and that's okay. The one thing I do want to make sure that everybody's clear on, to me, this is more a mindset issue, is that if you, as Lynn has said over and over already today, is that you say thank you. It's gratitude, because if you go into it saying, this is not a bad thing, this is a good thing, and I'm grateful for this, and I get the opportunity to help clear things up for you, to show the value. And if you don't see the value, that's fine, then it's not a good fit for us. But it is, when you go in with a great attitude and that positive mindset that I'm not afraid of an objection, then you're going to be able to overcome it a lot better. If you get nervous, if you're afraid of objections, and once they come in, you're going to give off that vibe, and it's just not going to be a good fit no matter what. And one thing I wanted to add is that, we talk a lot about the commission objection. Perhaps it's, I know somebody else in the business, I have a family member, those type of things. But also when you are cold calling, when you're door knocking, when you enter that door, somebody's saying no, that is an objection. And so some people just give up and walk away. And instead of trying to overcome that objection, I'm not saying you're going to stay there for 15 minutes harassing this person, but there are some subtle little ways you could do, such as, if I could give just 30 seconds of your time, just explain why I'm here, the value I'm looking to provide to the neighbors, and then you can make the decision whether I go or not. Would that be okay? Just little things that you can do that just allow you to get past that initial no. And it could be that the no is, I've got 3 kids screaming in the back here and it's the wrong time. No problem, I will leave. I'll come back at a later time. Hopefully it won't be as busy. Like you said, sometimes there's
layers.
There's layers. But I really think that, and I want to get back to, we mentioned that isolation. It's so key. It's so key. And what I would say to people, the way that I teach that is, so you're telling me that you don't want to move forward because of this. Is that correct? So I'm going to verify and then say, is there anything else holding you back from making that decision today? If there is, then we go through that. I'm going to clarify that. And then I go back and saying, so from what I understand, it's this reason and this reason that you don't want to move forward. Is that correct? Is there anything else? And you just keep saying that until you get to that point where you go, okay, so if we can solve this, this, and this, you would be ready to move forward? Fantastic. Now we go.
Yeah, well, that's like your analogy of a good journalist. A good journalist will ask the same question 20 different ways until they get the answer they want. And that's the sign of a good person who knows how to dig deep and find the reasons. And then, as Eric just said, if this is solved, if we've rectified this, we've talked about this, we're all in agreement with this, is there anything else that's holding you back from signing paperwork tonight? Is there anything else with me preparing your house? And they'll tell you, or you may go another layer. It may go a little bit further. You may find out it's a family member. You may find that one of them doesn't really want to sell the house, and they're not emotionally ready to make those changes. So there's always many, many levels. And I think that's what we're saying here. The other thing I believe greatly in is offering value. So give and give and give some more. So if you are cold calling, and a lot of my agents do door knock, and they door knock at some pretty high priced places too, and they're not afraid to door knock, which I think is amazing. It wasn't my favorite thing to do, but one of the things that you can do is offer value. So say, hey, I know you're really busy, I can hear the kids, you gotta go, but we've got some great value, got some great articles that are of value to your neighborhood and what's going on. Would it be okay if I drop one off in your mailbox? Or would it be okay if I send it to you? What's the best email address, or what's your number? I can text it to you. But always be offering, just be offering to give good information. I have found with everything, if you give and give and give, people will start to give back to you eventually. It takes time. I'm not saying it's going to happen the next day. These are planting seeds, so it does take time, but very, very good point, Eric.
For sure. And I think also, as we're sitting here talking, I'm thinking, my God, what about the brand new agents that are listening or watching this podcast? Is that, you're probably sitting here going, okay, but I'm just getting into the business. What are those objections? So it's very important that you talk to some of you find a good mentor, another agent, even talking to one of your managers, but finding out what are just ask the different agents, what are the common objections you get? And making a list of those, And then looking at how do I overcome that and what can I put into my presentation? So for example, there are some agents that to avoid the whole discount, I've seen agents come and provide 3 different levels of pricing. I'm not necessarily saying that's the best route to go. I'm just saying there are people that have looked and said, here's how I'm going to address it. Some people say, no, there is no discounting. Here's my package. Here's what I deliver. So you have to figure out, and goes back to one of our first episodes that we did was on business planning. So what does your business look like? How are you going to run your business? But as a new agent, it's important to find out what are some of the common objections. Ask some of the other agents. You'd be amazed at the different responses you're going to get to the same type of objection. And then you figure out which one works best for you. What do you feel comfortable with? And then again, as we said, you're not just going to go in and solve it. We're going to clarify what it is. We're going to isolate. We're going to get to the real truth. We're going to dig down deep. And when we find out that reason, okay, now how do I overcome that? But as we said, putting it into your presentation and building that in, that's going to ensure that I can bring that up earlier, overcome that. If they have any questions at that time, that's a perfect time to overcome it rather than at the end. Because I think, what I've seen, and I remember when I first got into sales, oh my God, like you get to the end, you get so frustrated.
That's the commissionectomy.
That it just, it throws you off, it gives off the wrong vibe. So if I can deal with that in the middle of the presentation, and then we get to the end, and now we've dealt with it, now when I go ask for the close, now it's a walk in the park. Right? So it's easier to bring those type of things up. Do not be afraid of them. Do not be afraid of them. The only reason you're going to be afraid is because you've never practiced and you've never, tried dealing with that before. So deal with that in the middle so that when you get to the close, now we've dealt with the objections. We're good.
Can I go back and address the new agent part of it? Okay, so please, new agents, don't tell anybody you're a new agent. They really don't need to know. And don't walk around with that big L on your forehead thinking you're a loser because you're a new agent, because you're not. You've probably got more enthusiasm than a whole bunch of 20-year veterans. That's a generalization, but you have a lot of enthusiasm, you have a lot of optimism, and don't lose that. So here's what I tell new agents. You have a big team behind you, and your team is your brokerage and the things that your brokerage can provide. And one thing about being new, and it's the same with me, I get questions every day. Do I know every answer? No, I don't. I never will. Nobody will know every answer. So you're not alone in that aspect either. New agents, you don't know everything. But what a great opportunity for you to say to the person in front of you, hey, you know what? I don't know the answer to that. But I have a team of people that help me that have, over 100 years of experience in the business, and I'm going to go ask, and I'm going to get you that answer. And then you have another opportunity to get in front of them again. It's a reason to call back. It's a reason to go back. So please don't say you're new. I got my first transaction walking my dog, walking with a neighbor who had a much bigger dog, and we formed a friendship, and we walked quite often during the week. And she knew I was in real estate. She did not know I was brand new. And she asked me to help her son buy a home in Hamilton. She didn't know for probably 10 years later that was my first transaction, nor did she need to. So please don't tell everybody you're new. You're not new. You just got more enthusiasm and a lot more time on your hands than some. So use it wisely. And discounting levels. So I think the best way to talk about that is, no, this is my business model, and if you're a referral to me from a friend or family or a past associate in my life, then I want to keep that fair and equitable for everybody. I have a friends and family price that I will do, but basically these are my charges, this is what I do, and for that I provide X, Y, Z, and you're going to be very satisfied with my service, and here's why, and start to work on that. Again, you have to have some models, and I think it's very important to be consistent, because being inconsistent about your pricing can come back and bite you later.
Oh yeah, big time.
Okay, it can put you on the road to a discount agent very, very quickly. And although it seems like you're making a lot of money cumulatively over the year, you have expectations. You have bills to pay. You have a family to feed. So you need to make sure you protect those things. That goes
Huge.
back to Eric's
Yeah.
business plan.
Yep. So any last comments, words overall on the topic?
Practice.
Yep.
Practice. I have a list of 180 things that a realtor does. That is available if anybody wants it. It's
Yep.
180 things. So again, on your Schedule A now, you have an opportunity to say what you do. You have an opportunity to say if you're providing staging or not. You have an opportunity to say you're going to be at every showing or not. You have all these opportunities that bake into the cake what you do. You can also find out what your average list to sold ratio is. There's all sorts of things that you can do to give yourself that advantage, but you need to make sure you have those ready. And please, when you have an appointment, don't give me 20 minutes to help you get ready for it. Like, you need to have your stuff together and you need to be ready.
Yep.
And when it's a downtime or a quieter time, use that time to be working on your plans and your programs and your presentations.
Yep.
End of lecture.
Okay.
Sorry.
End of lecture, class.
Class done.
So listen, hopefully you've gotten something out of today's episode about, you picked up one little, nugget of information that'll help you become better at overcoming objections. Each episode is here to bring you that information. And we strive to bring that value, which is why I'm trying to overcome that objection that you don't subscribe. So I want you to subscribe. We've now made sure that our podcast is going out over Spotify, the Amazon, Samsung, iHeartRadio. There's about 15, 20 different channels. I can't count how many we're on, but please subscribe, please listen. We bring out a new episode every week. We thank you for coming and listening to us today, and we hope that you have an amazing week out there of selling, and we will see you on the next episode.
Thanks, Eric. Bye.
Bye.